Hi friends, I'm Tammy K. Welcome back to my channel. We're getting right into it today as I'm spraying down my palette and I'm showing you my number 12 round brush, which is what I'm starting to use. I'm going to start grabbing some of my pink, and I have a lot of pink right here, so I don't even need to start adding some to the mixing space. And today we're talking about how to relax while you paint. And on this channel, I talk a lot about self-care and mixing that with our art and just trying to let go of perfect and this idea of it. Well, today is no exception, but I thought we could just hone in specifically. But before we get to that, there are three things that I will be sharing. But we're starting our Gladiolus painting today, and I am working off a reference photo, but I am just trying to go for different values. So the first value here is pretty kind of a medium color. So value is just the lightness and the darkness of a color. And then the next one, it's a little bit lighter. This one here you can see my gladiolus, just in case you're curious. This one here, that last one, is really light. And so how we get different values is we add more water to make a lighter value, of course, or more pigment to make a darker value. So with this flower, I'm wanting to use a variation of these values so that my flowers are going to have dimension. They're going to stand out. They're not going to be just flat. And I'm hoping that this painting can be fairly simple as I'm doing this, because we're not going to have to go and overly put a bunch of layers. I did want to show you real quick as we're painting that I just conducted an in-home class, and we were teaching and learning all these things about watercolor florals and watercolor techniques, you guys. It's so much fun to be able to learn and to paint at home, especially with a group. So if you have a friend or two that might be interested in painting, call them over, set up a party, enjoy that painting time together. It really makes a difference in how you view your art and your time being creative. So I've got my first larger bloom there, and you can see the different values. And I'm just going to go on as I'm putting these blooms in. Of course, I'm not adding the stem until later. That's just kind of how I like to do it, because then I know exactly where to place it. So I'm just going to keep doing that, putting my brush in water to take off some of the paint, and then dipping into the paint to get a darker value, and just make sure that I'm not doing it all the same way. So as we're chatting, I'm wanting to share with you that first tip that I have just to help you relax and enjoy your painting experience. And before these tips are shared, make sure that you're breathing. Make sure that you're trying to relax your body, your mind, and just come into it in a different space than you might when you're anxious. So that first tip is, before you sit down, just imagine yourself being calm and relaxing and enjoying the experience. There's a lot of research that shows that when you visualize something in your brain, it is much more likely to happen because you've set the mindset already. And it's calming your body. When you are worried or anxious about something or stressed, your body prepares for being stressed. It gets tense, your muscles tense up, you contract things, you start to breathe shallowly, and you start to breathe in a way that maybe is quicker than normal. So think about what you want your painting experience to be like. So we're talking about right? That pre-situation before we even sit down to paint. So I'm holding my brush here really loosely. I've got that little trumpet, looks like a trumpet, in there, and I've even gone in with a different pink color than some of the others I've been using, and made it really light, kept it very light. So when I'm looking at my reference, I'm just kind of going through it and looking for the basic shapes. So here I'm painting in what kind of looks like a pointy circle, or well, now it looks more like an oval or a lemon shape. That might work too. And then I'm just connecting the various petals together, making sure my values are different with each one, or with at least some of them. And if you look at these flowers by themselves, you're probably underwhelmed, like, okay, that doesn't look very hard, that doesn't look very fancy. But when you put them all together and then you add in that stem, you're going to see the value of painting in this way. Everything is very loose, but it comes together and it creates the image, the object that you're going for. All right, we've got some more of those front-facing blooms, and sometimes you want to go in later and start to darken up some of the petals. We're going to do that, and it's going to help differentiate between different flowers. So don't worry if things are starting to kind of meld together. All right, so I switched now to my number 6 round brush, my lovely cooler colors, and I'm going for that green, a nice kind of sappy green, grassy green here, mixing it with a yellow green that was already on my palette. And I'm going to add in the stem, and you will notice how much this is starting to come together when we put this together. Now I am pressing, I'm going to press down here, and I'm going to add that little bud at the top. And now I'm going to connect everything together to that main stem. So holding the brush fairly close to the tip versus I usually hold it in the middle of the handle, and it's giving me more precision when I'm trying to be a little bit more delicate when I'm painting. And so now I'm just going to go through. Now my flowers are still wet, so I'm carefully just trying to kind of dab that paint on and not disturb that pink too much, because that pink is going to want to flow into the green. And of course, pink, red, green, when they mix together, they create a muddy color. But don't worry about that. Your flowers are probably fairly dry by now, and it's not a huge issue at this point. So, as you can see, I'm just trying to go slowly, a little bit meticulously, methodically. I am a quick painter, but there are times where it calls to slow down a little bit, and that also helps us slow down, helps our brain and our mentality slow down. And now I'm using heavy pressure to create a thicker line, and then I just lift up slowly to create a point. Let's do that again. And then we've got our gladiolus leaf happening here. I think I'll do probably 4 altogether. I like to just hold it pretty loosely, that brush, so that I can have my brush move around and kind of be a little shaky. And right now I'm going for balance, and I'm wanting to balance out the different colors or objects on the page, but at the same time, I also want to make sure that my leaves are, different. They're interesting. They're not just the same shape, the same angle, pointing the same direction. All right, so my next tip for helping you relax while you're painting is really just to think about that present moment. What are the things that you're enjoying? We so often start to think, okay, I don't really love when I'm painting. I'm frustrated by this. This is really hard. This isn't looking like how I want it. And side note, I'm just going with a more saturated green and just going over some parts to actually emphasize a little bit of shadow, a little bit of darkness to create that dimension, that pop of color that we want. And that just means I'm grabbing paint, I'm not adding water to it, if at all, just kind of using the wetness of my brush to pick up that paint. And now we've got a really dark saturation. Even if you use the same color you did before in the first layer, there's less water on it, so it's going to be a darker color. So yeah, as we're painting this, keep your positive thoughts, encourage yourself. Right now I'm doing something that might feel really scary. I'm going in with a darker, like we just talked about, saturated color, and I'm just marking out the edges where a petal is there and it's folding over the lighter ones in the back. And I'm gonna just have that come around, and so that is gonna give me some depth. Now all of a sudden that flat floral, which you could leave it like that, but that's not the look I'm going for. All of a sudden, it is kind of popping off the page. And you can see into it like it's this cupped flower. So we're going to do that on the other side as well. And so if there's anything about your painting that you are enjoying right now, just bring that to your mind, reflect on it, the colors, the shapes, maybe the composition. Maybe you like everything. And if you don't feel like you like too much, just look for something simple. All right, so I hope that those 2 tips so far can be very helpful for you in your journey. Now I am just going to create this separation between different edges. That's where like one petal meets another petal. And so again, we're going with that more dark saturated pink, less water, more pigment, and I'm just painting in some of those petals or some of those edges a little bit darker. And so that's going to make a contrast with our florals as well. And don't forget, we are going to put in some centers classic for Gladiolus, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But right now, continuing that process of darkening up some of those petals, which I find to be really fun. With this one here, it's such a light petal, I'm not going to paint the whole thing, but I did do a little C-curve shape, a little strip of color. Now I've cleaned my brush, you can dab it on your paper towel, and then you can just start to blend that edge in, and all of a sudden you don't have a hard line anymore. So we're going to do that with this over here. And this floral it's got some different values, but it's really similar. So we're going to paint out the edge here as I was just thinking about what I wanted to do. And we're doing this separation. Now all of a sudden that petal is standing out in a different way. And you're really starting to create some depth. So same thing, clean your brush, dab it on your paper towel, and then just spread out that paint. And so the edge now is soft versus a hard edge. And we still can see that that color is there, but it's not as harsh. It's blended in. It's very soft, very billowy. All right, I am not done. I just have a few more that I would like to do here. And speaking a little bit more to kind of the present and the thoughts that you can have over your painting, if you make a mistake, another thing to do in that present moment is to embrace the mistake. Chalk it up as a learning experience. Guys, you cannot feel like you are above and beyond making mistakes. Mistakes are what helps us to learn and grow and process. Nobody likes them, but if we can shift our mindset from a mistake is a bad thing and it means we're not good at our job, our craft, whatever we're creating, then it gives us a sense of disappointment and frustration. But if we can reframe it to it helps us to learn what not to do next time and what we like, what we don't like. It's going to give us a much more of just an encouragement that mistakes mean learning, which means we're growing and changing and getting better. And that's a good thing. So I've darkened up this one here. I just wanted to create a contrast between this one outside petal and the other. So you don't have to be as detailed as I am. I'm just kind of going with the flow here, having a good time. And sometimes it gets away from me, the time, and just, getting into that flow state, people. All right, just a little bit of light paint here, just kind of dabbing it on the lighter spaces and making sure that this front petal is a little bit darker. And we have just a little bit more detail to go into here as we're finishing up our painting. But while we're still going, the third tip here to relax, to enjoy your painting experience, is to think about the future. Think about, you're sitting down, you're making mistakes, you're practicing, you're learning. So imagine what it's going to be like, what will your experience be like in a year when you are in this space where now you've got an extra year under your belt of practice, of learning, of accomplishment. Save your journals, save your sketchbooks, your paintings, because I promise it's going to be a really cool, inspirational moment when you look back, and now it's been a year, and you get to see how far you've come, how much you've grown. It's really wonderful to be able to recognize those special moments and all the hard work that you've put into everything. So I've just added a quick, really light paint splatter of pink and yellow. Of course, use the colors that you have, that you want. I also am seeing just a little bit of white space here that I feel needs to be filled in with these flowers. So, feel free to do that. You can always add more when you look at your composition later and you say, you know what, I think this is missing something. We're just trying to make the flowers a lot more full, and that's okay to do. I often do that, kind of change the plan, and don't feel bad about it. So this is a colored pencil, of course in white, and we're going to use this for our centers. Now, in case you're wondering, the colored pencil that I'm using is from Primacolor, and you can purchase those on Amazon. I've seen them at Walmart. They're a higher quality colored pencil than, say, a child set. They're very smooth and very pigmented, I would say, as well. So for me, I wasn't sure how much this would show up, but you can see how well this pencil is showing up, this white here. So I'm just doing the middle part and just creating these long pieces, the stamen, and I just like to curve them a little bit, kind of splay them out or spray them out, and then a little bit of dots at the top as well. So I'm keeping this pretty loose, a loose hold on my pencil, just wanting to make sure that I have some centers for everything. And I was really delighted using this instead of a white paint because it was just so simple, so easy, so clean, and it wasn't a messy thing or anything like that. So now that that second row of florals is on, I'm just adding a little bit extra color. Happy painting, guys, and happy mental health.